There we go. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing this morning? Just give me a thumbs up or whatever. That's great. If your cameras aren't on, if you don't mind turning them on, the roughest thing for an online training class is us not to see the people there. We can't read what we're actually getting across and what we're not. But you all should be able to see my screen over here. The OSHA top 10 most cited violations. Again, just like Chastity said, if you have questions, just you can do the little raise your hand thing on the bottom of the screen there. Raise your hand in the screen if I can see you, or just key up your mic and I might say, wait 1 second. So apologies for sucking on a cough drop, but I'm still trying to get rid of the nasty cold that's going around. So if any of you have been through that, you know how tough it is to get rid of. So this is the 2025. And what we're going to talk about is the top 10, and it's across all industries. I actually pulled separate the top five for construction versus the top five for general industry that we'll also talk about. It's not really, it hasn't changed a ton, but it has changed a little bit this year. Fall protection is again the highest cited item. One of the reasons is if you're working on the top of a roof or you're working out where OSHA can see you, that's one of the fatal four. So that allows them to come into your job site. OSHA can't just inspect you just because they feel like it. They have to see something to bring them in. And one of those things need to be either like the fatal four, a national emphasis program, or a regional emphasis program. And falls are the biggest killer in construction. So we've historically killed more people in falls than anything else. Common issues, missing guardrails, lacking a harness, not using a harness correctly, lack of fall protection planning. That would be by your competent person. And obviously, the major risk is death, right? How far do you have to fall before you die? Does anybody know? There's several people who die every year just tripping and falling to the same level. So we add speed to that. The human body falls 32 feet per second squared, which means at 6 feet, you're going to hit with 10 times your body weight. So that's a huge issue, right? So just 6 foot, 10 times your body weight. So if you're 250 pounds, that's a 2,500 pound impact you're going to make when you hit the ground. So that's usually going to hurt. That's usually going to give major problems. You don't see training here. And the reason is you're going to see it later. They broke that out separately because there were so many violations. Number two is HAZCOM. We still continue. This is an easy, OSHA can get you anytime type thing. If you have a chemical, you have to have an SDS sheet. If you have a chemical and an SDS sheet, you have to do training and they have to be labeled. So in this day and age, with all the technology we have, we set up a lot of clients for paperless SDS systems. Yes, some people still require it papered. You can print it off from these systems, but they've literally got so advanced that if you have a smartphone and you type in whatever that chemical that the OSHA inspector pulls and says, "Do you have it in your SDS binder?" And you type it in the search, it says, "Nope, it's not in there. Would you like me to add it?" You go, "Yes, please," without OSHA even knowing, then you turn around and hey, it's already in there. So this is something that we continue to ignore. We continue to not train on it. That's one of the big things as well, lack of employee training. And what happens when OSHA walks out and they find a chemical and they go, "Hey, you're supposed to have eye protection, or you're supposed to have full length sleeves, or whatever that may be." What's the employee going to say? I don't know. I don't know equals a training violation when it comes to OSHA. Okay. And we are waiting for the 2026 violation numbers to come out. But currently, we're still under the 16,500. So when 2026 comes out, we're guessing it's going to be somewhere around 17,000 for a serious violation. So each one of these things can be cited. Each one of these things are usually cited separately. So if you get a HAZCOM citation, it's usually you're missing or you have outdated information, you have improper labeling, or you have lack of training, or all three, right? So, number three, ladders. We all use them, but we don't always use them correctly, right? So, ladders are a huge problem. Proper ladder for the proper job, not leaning a step ladder unless it's lean safe, which a lot of people don't even know about lean safe still. There are step ladders that are allowed to be leaned. There are ones that aren't. Using them the way the manufacturer intended. So when we talk about ladders, talk about subpart X, stairways and ladders. It's about 3 pages if you want to review it. Um, but that's a huge issue. Ladders not inspected before use. All right. We have a ding in our hollow form aluminum ladders. We have a missing rung. We have missing labels. All that sort of stuff should have been figured out in inspection. So that's a citation. Then whatever the issue is also a citation. Using ladders for unintended purposes, you'll see them used, as walkboards. You'll see them used as all sorts of things. They have to be used the way the manufacturer intends them to be used. They're a frequent cause of our slips and falls. So people don't use them correctly. They're on top of a 6 foot ladder. They're on the top rung. It kicks out underneath them. You got an extension ladder, but it doesn't go 3 feet above, right? That's a big one. It's not at the proper 4-to-1 angle. And actually, OSHA and NIOSH have an app. If you want to go to your Play Store, it's a free app that talks about ladders. And it's not just the ladder angle anymore. It's also about selecting the right ladder. So that's free. Just go to your Apple Store, your Play Store, whatever device you have, and download that app because ladders are everywhere, right? Lockout, tag out. Still having a problem with lockout, tag out. This is usually on the top 10 list. Um, no written lockout tagout program, employees not trained, equipment serviced while energized. If you have a tester, I keep talking to people and they go, well, we don't do anything live. Great. Do you have a fluke meter? You have a multimeter? Do you test anything? Well, yeah. Then you do it live. All right. That piece of equipment is on. If you're HVAC or you're an electrician or any of that, you can't troubleshoot unless it's live. But there's safe precautions you can take, right? And if we can lock it out and tag it out, we need to do so. And that comes right down to your tools. How do you change a blade on a saw? How do you change, a drill bit? It still needs to be locked out and tagged out. And it needs to be specific to the equipment. That's something that gets cited all the time. Any questions so far? I know we're only 4 in, but I don't see any. All right. Respiratory protection. This has been back on the top 10 well before COVID, but really jumped up there during COVID. Respiratory protection, when we have dust, what's dust? Silica, right? Silica, silicosis, that's a problem. Some of our products require respirator protection, and you would find that right on the SDS sheet, going back up and tying in number 2 there. Not having a written respiratory protection program is usually cited. Not doing medical evaluation or fit testing. Those are both citations that we get all the time. If we put a respirator on somebody, we have to fit test them. We have to medically evaluate them. Well, we don't use respirators. We use uh, the dust masks. Well, there is a standard. If it's not required and they're doing it under voluntary use, you can give them subpart D and you're okay. But if it says right on the SDS sheet that while mixing, you need to have a respirator on, that's no longer voluntary use. Okay. That's a medical evaluation. That's fit testing. And again, with where we're at, with the evolution of online and stuff like that, we have doctors online that do nothing but medical evaluations. So if we can get by with a simple medical evaluation, you can find those online all day long. And they're actual MDs that review the program and go through everything. So that's not really that big of a deal. Improper respirator selection or use. We find this a lot, right? If they're not using the right respirator that's called out, they're not using the right cartridges, they're not using the right protection, it's going to actually protect them from the hazard they're dealing with. That's a problem. And where do we find what respirators we need? Again, those SDS sheets. We're working down to 6. This is where they broke out fall protection training. So whenever a standard's written, like fall protection in construction is 1926 500. That's subpart M. What they're first going to do is have definitions. Then they're going to have kind of the broad information. And then they're going to have specific information. And then they're going to do training. So that's why you would find training 1926.503 and not training workers to fall protection. This needs to happen yearly for most companies. If you work in general industry and you're working over 4 feet, you have to have fall protection training. If you're working construction and you're working over 6 feet, you have to have fall protection training. If your employees are exposed or could be exposed to it, you have to have fall protection training. So, how do you go about that? You could have a consultant like me come in and do the training. You could have somebody in-house do the training, a competent person. All right. What's a competent person? Background, training, and experience, ability to recognize a hazard, authority to take immediate corrective action. They could certainly do training for you. You can even do some toolbox talks to help keep that training fresh. So, what we usually suggest for any of this stuff, do the training. All right. For us, if we did something like this, it'd probably be 4 hour fall protection training, user training. And then at least once a year, make sure you go through a series of toolbox talks that cover training. How many people do toolbox talks on here? Raise your hand in the picture. Nobody? Monday morning toolbox talks are just, I mean, they're almost required at this point, right? We got to do them on a regular basis. OSHA requires us to do frequent and regular training. And while they're not formal long courses, they're still training, right? Monday morning toolbox talks, if you can get all your people standing up and you go through a toolbox talk with them and it gives you time to kind of look at them over and make sure they're not hurt from the weekend, make sure you can kind of do the sniff test as you walk around and nobody smells like they just crawled out of a bottle of bourbon. All right. That sort of stuff is an opportunity for you to catch things before they even happen Monday morning, right? Is somebody leaning on the table because they have a bad back because they were helping somebody move over the weekend? Well, what do you think they're going to do 30 minutes once they're on your job site, right? They're going to stretch that back. It's going to get worse. And now you have a claim. Not documenting the training. You constantly will get people to go, oh, yeah, we've had training before, but they have no signatures. They don't have anything. 1926 503 lays out the 11 or 13 items they want you to teach and even tells you, as the employer, how to certify this training. Um, Employees unaware of the equipment to use. When it comes to fall protection, I have a famous war story. We had a framer that, I mean, they were tough to try to get fall protection on. And OSHA nailed them for what's called a willful. So instead of it being 16.5, it'd be 165,000. All right, that's 10 times maximum penalty. That's what a willful is. So they had been hit for it before. OSHA got tired of it. They gave them a willful 4 ways. I mean, you're looking at $500,000 basically. And the owner was like, I can't do this. I can't stay in business. I'll go out of business. And they said, okay, well, here's the deal. The local director said, here's the deal. If I don't catch one of your people not in a fall hazard, or if they are in a fall hazard, they're tied off for the next 6 months, and I'm going to be looking for you. If you get through that period and everybody's tied off, then we'll get rid of the fine. Great deal. They went out and bought buckets and buckets and pallets of buckets of these, compliance in a bucket kit. So I said, well, we need to do the training. Yeah, we'll get to that. No, no, no. We need to do the training. First site I go to, I look up, the guy's got a harness on, a rope, and a rope grab. I go, great. What's he tied off to? So I walk around to the back of the house. And there's another guy. Harness, rope, rope grab. So, guys, what are you tied off to? He said, well, I'm tied off to him. What? Yeah, I'm tied off to him. If I fall, he drops and he catches me. That's not really how this works. If one of you falls, the acceleration is going to slingshot the other person on the ground at a higher rate of speed. So you're what's called a splat acceleration program. Okay. They said, well, what do you expect us to do? We got two harnesses, right? I said, yeah. We got one rope. Well, that's a problem. And we got one of these metal thingies that we don't know what they are. So that's an anchor point. So you should have two ropes and two anchor points. Well, we didn't. So management was in such a hurry to get this stuff out that they didn't bother to train them how to properly use it. So that comes back on us to not train them. So that's the reason we have to train them how to use this properly. Any questions so far? Pretty quiet crowd. I don't see anything in the chat either. All right. Scaffold has moved up to number 7. We use Scaffold a lot more, especially when we go out to these jobs that are ladder last programs and stuff like that. Mobile work platforms, MUPs, scissor lifts, boom lifts, etc. And Scaffold seem to be the main way that we we do this now. Again, we're getting scaffold out there and we require that competent person. Well, my first question to the competent person is what type of scaffold is this? Most of them can't answer that. Second question, who's the manufacturer? They can't answer that. What are you supposed to be inspecting? They have no idea. So that comes back to training, right? So we have improper construction, missing guardrails, planking, or cross braces, lack of daily inspections by a competent person, and unsafe access because they're climbing the side of the scaffold. That can't happen. All right. So how many people in here use scaffold? We'll see many hands up, but okay, good job. If you use it, know it, right? How much can it hold? Who manufactured it? What are you supposed to do for training? What are you supposed to do for daily inspections? One thing we've taken a lot of our daily inspections to is using a QR code type company, something like SurveyMonkey or something like that, where you can take your inspection checklist, put it to a QR code so anybody with a cell phone can walk up and scan it and go through and do inspections. So it makes it easier. And then that inspection gets emailed wherever you send it to. So hopefully you send it to your safety department, the job site, et cetera, to be stored. That's one of the easy things. Again, when we talk to people out on the job site and they're on a scaffold and you say, well, that's supposed to be fully planked. And they go, well, I didn't know. What does that mean? We talked about it before. That means that's a training issue. That's going to get them cited under the training standard as well. All right. Number eight, powered industrial trucks, forklifts. All right. Operators not trained or certified, and they're not properly trained or certified. We have plenty of companies that think just watching a video makes them trained and certified. Again, OSHA under 1910-178, if you go through that standard, it shows you, again, the employer must certify in writing that this training has happened. And then you have to go through every couple years and make sure you're watching them and you're evaluating them to keep that certification up to date. Unsafe driving practices, all right. Maybe they're going the wrong way on inclines. Maybe they're going too fast or they're going around blind corners. Poor maintenance or inspections. I can't tell you how many forklifts, the seatbelt doesn't work anymore. The hydraulic hose looks like it's ready to blow. They're just in rough shape. And then overload or unstable loads. So those are the things that get them there for power industrial trucks. Eye and face protection, that's broken out. All right. Employees not wearing required PPE, inadequate protection for the task. So they might be using a face shield, but they're not using eye protection underneath. Eye protection is for the eyes, face is for the face. The face doesn't do both. Inadequate protection, lack of PPE training or enforcement. It's pretty easy to see. 10, machine guarding. If it came with a guard, it's got to be protected. If it's got something that can suck you in, so it's got a gear or it's got pulleys or anything like that where you can stick your finger in and it can bring you in, it's got to be guarded. All right. And there's different standards for that. Any exposed moving parts need to have guards. Any guards removed need to be put back. This makes for a huge risk of amputations and serious injuries. So that's your top 10 overall for OSHA. Sorry about that. For construction, your top five is your fall protection, your ladders, your fall protection training requirements, your scaffold, PPE. One thing that's changed in the top five is hard hats are going down. Why? Because we're starting to wear them finally. And a lot of companies are even requiring helmets. So um, that's a huge issue. Fall protection being the most cited, 15 consecutive years, the most cited item. All right. Before that, I believe it was SDS for a little while. Well, MSDS back then, but HAZCOM. General industry, HAZCOM still your number one. Lockout, tagout's your number two. Respiratory protection, forklifts, and machine guarding. All right. HAZCOM and lockout, tagout systems need to be in place. They need to be trained on. They need to be enforced. So that's the two there. Hopefully, the key takeaways for you. First off, if you're in construction, fall protection training, you've got to make sure that's up to date. Maintain written safety programs, conduct routine inspections and audits. Subpart C even tells us that we have to do frequent and regular inspections, whatever that means to you. OSHA writes what's called performance standards. So they tell you this is what you got to do. They just don't tell you this is how you got to do it. Does that make sense? So, what is frequent and regular inspections to you? If you don't know, I usually say if you're sitting on a jury because somebody just unfortunately passed away on your job site, what makes you feel comfortable with you've done enough inspections, you've done enough training? And the sad answer to that is you almost never feel like it's enough once something like that's happened. So if we take that thought process and that view a little bit, that'll kind of help guide our our actions moving forward. Maintaining our written safety programs just has to happen. And document on your training. There is a publication on OSHA. If you look up OSHA.gov, you can look at what do we have to train on. And OSHA book's about that thick. The what do we have to train on about yay thick. I mean, it's a lot more, but it goes through and breaks down. Pretty much good rule of thumb is if there's an owner's manual to it, you have to train on it. If your employees have to touch it or do it, you have to train on it. So, figuring out that training and how you're going to do that is huge. Is there any questions? I want to make sure I leave plenty of time to answer questions. Feel free to either key up your mic or go to the chat. Let me bring the chat back up. I'm going to exit out of this. Anybody need anything off before I stop the share? I don't see anything there. All right. So now I can pull up the chat too. All right. Anybody have any questions? Any safety questions? It doesn't have to be the top 10. It can be anything safety related. A lot of people go, what's my first step to make my safety program better? This is a big one that comes up. And what I like to do is bring in 4 or 5 people, mix of people out of your organization, and get them in a room. And I put a piece of paper in front of them and I go, here, do me a favor, write down 5 ways doing what we do every day I could get killed. What's 5 ways? And they do, they write it down. And then I go, okay, next task. What's 5 ways that I could become permanently disabled? That's not on the other list. We know that the ultimate, we've got that. So they'll go through and they'll take a little time and they'll do that. And I go, you just created your thou shall nots. All right. This is things that you need to look at your company right now. Do we have programs to prevent it? Does everybody know what the major issues are and how we take care of them and how we expect you to take care of them? Then we can kind of boil everything down after that. Does that make sense to people? The making that thou shall not list and really making them understand why. And then we can worry about what OSHA says after that. That's your biggest thing. What can hurt you or kill you? That's the big thing first. And then making sure we don't allow that to happen there, right? No team should allow that to happen. So just giving you kind of a little heads up and ways you can do this stuff. Start there. Create your thou shall nots list, post it on the wall, make it, part of your meeting from time to time, and then making sure you can kind of move it from there. That's just a Do you have a recommendation to use for electronic SDS sheets? Yeah, let me tell you, I'll tell you what. If anybody wants to be on it, you can contact Kevin Murphy. He's at my office, the 301-432-3949, and you can ask him. We have one that we use, and we put all of our clients, they get a discount because all of our clients go on it. We'll be happy to let any preferred client use our discount. So you're more than welcome to reach out to him and he can try to help you out with that. That's not a problem. Other questions? That was a great question. If you're thinking it, 4 or 5 other people are thinking it. So just throw it in there. Fall protection required when standing on the bed of a flatbed trailer if it's under 6 foot. So that depends, Joe. If we're in the yard, yes, 4 foot and above, we need to have fall protection. A lot of yards are starting to go to the drive under carts, right? So they've got their booms where the trucks can load and not load, and they're having an arm or more like a gantry that goes across that they can tie off to and be on those loads. On the job site, we're back to construction. That's the 6 foot standard. So if we go above, then we got to figure that out. That's a lot harder to figure out on construction sites because we don't usually have that loading area and unloading area, right? So maybe can we work off of a ladder? If we work off of a ladder, we're not required to be tied off while we're working off of a ladder. So there are some ways we can kind of think about that and kind of figure that out. So hopefully that helped answer your question. Other questions? That was a good one too. Other questions? I put plenty of time in. Sorry, I only have a couple questions so far. A lot of people are asking what OSHA's new fines are going to be. I think I said that before. We don't know that yet. It goes with inflation now, but looking at the past few years, it looks like it's going to be somewhere around 17,000 per violation this year, and then your willful repeats will be 10 times that, so it'll be 170,000. Does everybody know how to find your OSHA history? If you go to OSHA.gov and you put in keyword establishment search, you can put in the name of your company or any other company, and you can look at what your OSHA history is. You can click on the different times OSHA's visited you, what's actually your on your record there, and if it's been within 5 years and you get cited for that item again, that's when it can become willful or repeat. So that's when those big money items come in. Yes, sir, John.
Um, I had heard a rumor that OSHA was going to start to change how they were dealing with different standards, particularly on construction sites, and the 4 foot for fall protection being a good example. That they were going to stop looking at it so much so as what the project or work area is, and more what the task was. For instance, if a Sunbelt mechanic comes out to work on a boom lift and they walk up the boom and they're now 8 feet off the ground, um, to repair that OSHA would look at that as general industry, not construction, because he is not building anything. Have you heard of anything along those lines, that how they're gonna?
No, the only thing that's really came from OSHA is they started to look in, and a lot of different people are kind of chomping at the bit on this, was they're trying to understand high hazard industries right now. And they're saying that, they may not cite certain items for high hazard industries because it's understood. We've always had this with like your tower climbers and stuff like that, where they can free climb 5,000 feet. So they don't have to be tied off and stuff like that. That's a problem, but that's kind of getting looked at it. OSHA always looks at what's the hazard and then how does it rate? Is it other than serious or is it serious? What's serious and other than serious? Other than serious means it's probably not going to send you to the hospital. Serious means you're going to get hurt or it's going to permanently change the way you do things. All right. So falling off the top of a ladder, you land on your head, that could kill you. That's going to be a serious. Um, they would look as far as that's never changed. If it's general industry, if they've pulled that piece of equipment, it's off the construction area, active construction area, and they've got it off to one side and they're servicing it, that is a 1910 standard. That's a general industry citation because that's what they're doing. They're doing maintenance in general industry. We have certain sites where we have maintenance workers working and we have construction working. That's two different industries. They've got to look at each one and what they're doing differently. So you might have one person that's sitting at 5 feet, not tied off, but they're doing construction. They're not going to get cited. And then you have a maintenance worker right next to them that's not tied off that gets cited because that's 4 feet, general industry. All right. They also have something called the general duty clause. And a lot of people always want to know, well, where does OSHA say this or where does OSHA say that? OSHA likes to use this general duty clause. And what it is it says, you as an employer shall furnish a work site free from all hazards. Failure to do so, you need to at least protect employees from recognized hazards. All right. So that's kind of where we live. So it's pretty simple. Can it hurt you? If you're shaking your head, yes. Can it kill you? You're shaking your head, yes. It's a citation. So if they don't have a specific one that says something, hurt if this happened, couldn't this end up killing somebody? That's going to turn it into a 5A general duty clause. So, other questions? These are great questions.
Hey Matt, this is Joe Saffron. Hey,
Good job.
would unloading pipe on a job site with a articulating boom be general industry or construction?
You're doing construction activity, you're in a construction active area, it's going to be construction.
Right.
Yeah. If you're in the yard, that changes. So when you're loading pipe back at the warehouse, that's general industry. So that's a little more stringent. Great question. Next, trying to look around the screen. There's quite a bit of you. So if I'm missing you, just key up your mic. All right. Well, I greatly appreciate you all taking the time out for this session. We have another one kicking off at 11 o'clock to talk about the OSHA 300 form and the record keeping standard. We'll talk a little bit about the online reporting of those 300 forms now. Um, but that'll kick off here at 11 o'clock. My number is well, it should have been on the screen, but I'll put it in the chat real quick. If you have any questions, just let me know your preferred client when you called, and you guys always have somebody that you can reach out to and ask a question. I never have a problem trying to set you in the right direction. So I just put that in the chat for you. That's my cell phone.
So those of you who are attending our second session at 11, you would have gotten a separate Zoom link for that. I'm going to resend it again now, just in case you don't have it or you've misplaced it or what have you. I want to make sure everybody can get logged in there. So we'll go ahead and end this session. If no one has any other questions, thank you for your participation and your questions and for coming to our seminar here. And thank you to Matt for your presentation, always fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and resend that second link, and then we'll see those of you who are in the second session at 11.
See you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, you're welcome.